Americans voted for Trump. It happened. This is a movie called Idiocracy. Bear with me, I'm not making fun of anyone. This movie came out in 2006, 18 years ago, and before the time of many young voters today, which is a pity because it contains some serious foreshadowing. Now, if you haven't seen it, it's a science fiction comedy that depicts a future society where intelligence and critical thinking are almost extinct. Joe Bowers is just an average guy, but he ends up as part of a military hibernation experiment that goes wrong. So he wakes up 500 years later in a future dominated by anti-intellectualism and consumerism. The movie is basically a satirical look at a society becoming less intelligent over time because of the glorification of ignorance and mindless entertainment. Ultimately, it's an exaggerated comedy, but it has strong links to trends that we see today: misinformation, environmental neglect, and the preference of popularity over policy when it comes to leadership. Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho is a former wrestler, reality star, and President of the United States. Now, he delivers over-the-top speeches, plays to the crowd, and prioritizes showmanship over substance. And people support him because he's famous and popular. Unfortunately, this means that he has very little understanding of policy or how to govern. Donald Trump's background as a businessman and reality TV star made him a cultural icon, and people started to appreciate his unfiltered attitude. He appeared authentic and a straight talker. His political rise started to reflect a shift towards valuing celebrity appeal and charisma over traditional political experience. Now, in truth, his speeches have very little substance and his policies are incredibly damaging to large parts of the population. His leadership style relies on spectacle, simple but misleading messaging, and loyalty to him is more important than listening to experts.
Now, I'm no botanist, but I do know that if you put water on plants, they grow.
Oh, well, I've never seen no plants grow out of no toilet.
Hey, that's good. You sure you ain't the smartest guy in the world?
Yeah.
This anti-intellectual movie plot aligns clearly with the growing distrust of experts and science across America. You see, experts are now seen as untrustworthy or even anti-American. Even if you're not in America, you may be accused of being part of the establishment. Now, science is, of course, still highly respected by many people in America, but the recent election results show the realities of how the thought processes of the American majority are shifting away from education, away from expertise, and more towards rhetoric and simple messaging. Society doesn't want information or detail, they want buzzwords. Catchphrases replaces policy discussion, and the population reacts to emotional appeals instead of logical arguments. Trump and some Republican leaders have adopted this style. They use catchy slogans. They do this to distract and engage people, and it works because it's easy to grasp and it evokes strong emotional responses. Now, the tactic is to make you treat politics like cheering for your favorite football team, so that instead of caring about the governance, you only care about winning. It's highly effective, mobilizes strong support, but it comes at a cost of truly understanding the complexity of government. And this is likely why Google searches for "what is a tariff" increased after the election. The movie shows how entertainment and media are reduced to lowbrow, mind-numbing spectacles designed for maximum visceral reaction. Thoughtful media is non-existent, and the people are continually distracted by sensationalist, meaningless content. Sound familiar? In our world today, the influence of sensationalist media, here we're talking cable news, social media, and of course, TikTok's algorithm, has polarized audiences and created echo chambers, where we as individuals receive a highly curated version of news that aligns with our beliefs. We don't see the other side of TikTok. Right-leaning media outlets such as Fox News tend to prioritize emotional appeal over objective reporting, promoting narratives that align with Republican or Trump-aligned agendas. Social media platforms, too, play a role in reinforcing bias and sensationalism because they amplify content that drives engagement, regardless of whether it's based in fact. Now, coming back to Idiocracy, we see how corporations run almost every aspect of society. Brondo is an energy drink that has replaced water. This is used to symbolize the absurdity of corporate control. Like, we quite literally need water to survive. Now, consumerism is extreme, and people's identities and clothing revolve around brand loyalty and consumption. In reality, the simple truth, corporate interests have significant influence in American politics, particularly through lobbying, campaign donations, and media sponsorships. Many Trump-era policies, such as tax cuts for corporations and deregulation efforts, aligned with corporate interests, reflecting a system where business and political agendas were intertwined, which leads to some interesting irony, because the voter base tends to be skeptical of big tech or the elite, while at the same time embracing consumer culture and brand-oriented identity in ways that echo Idiocracy's world. How many products did Trump sell this past year? Watches, sneakers, NFTs, coins, Bibles. A politician is making money off of Jesus. Idiocracy shows that leaders like Camacho represent the everyman, someone who appeals to the masses by seeming relatable, genuine, and anti-establishment. The ideal leader isn't intelligent, but he's charismatic. He's just like you, and that appeals to an anti-elite sentiment. Again, painfully ironic that Trump inspires anti-elitism while literally being a member of the elite. What he does is he positions himself as a fighter against the establishment, and many of his supporters see him as one of them, despite his claims of wealth and status. You see, he's crafted a persona, one that resonates with people who feel ignored by traditional institutions, much like Camacho's appeal in the populace of Idiocracy. And this populist approach downplays expertise in favor of relatability, a trend that aligns with the film's satirical portrayal of leadership. However, how relatable should a convicted felon, fraudster, and sexual predator be? And just to be clear, that is not libel, that is a legal statement of fact. Idiocracy is a fun, exaggerated, satirical look at the fears of a society trending towards intellectual decay. The reality of America today is, of course, more nuanced, but it is dangerously close. We need Americans to value education, to value critical thinking, and to value our responsibility to this planet. Thanks for watching. And if you felt offended by any of this, I do apologize, because it was not my intention to offend. I think the parallels of science fiction and society are very interesting, and I find it very fascinating how a movie that came out in 2006, 18 years ago, could so accurately portray the state of society and the minds of voters today. In saying all of that, the time machine gag is one of the best jokes in all the film.
But Brondo's got what plants crave.
It's got electrolytes.